Hello and welcome. This is Turning Anxiety into Abundance: How to Manifest in Uncertain Times. And I'd love to start with a story. So, when is the last time that you had a really long day and you crawled into bed and you were so tired, and then as soon as your head hit the pillow, you're magically thinking about all of these things. Your to-do list for tomorrow starts running through your mind. Oh, those things you need to put on the grocery list. Then you're suddenly thinking about maybe your friends and family and what they need to do, and you need to call your mom or whatever that is. And these to-do lists and ideas are just kind of running through your head. And then the next thing you know, you're thinking about potentially like the safety and love of your friends and family and some of their challenges, some of the challenges you're facing. And then it is really easy to expand into being like, oh gosh, the world's kind of going to hell in a handbasket right now. And the next thing you know, you've been in bed for potentially hours, not sleeping. When is the last time that happened to you? Because I know, well, before I figured out my impeccable evening routine, this used to be me on a regular basis, that I would be so tired and so mentally exhausted. But as soon as my head hit the pillow, magically my brain would turn back on and tell me all of the things I needed to worry about from the day or for the future. All right. So, in case you haven't met me, my name is Kitty Coy, and I am the Manifestation Mentor. I support ambitious women to create a world where they have an abundance of health, wealth, and time. And specifically, I love to do that using quantum physics and neuroscience. I'm actually a neuroscientist. That's what I have my degree in, and that's what I did for 12 years before becoming a coach. So I really take a neuroscience based approach to manifestation and creating the life of your dreams. My secret super talent is taking things that are really complicated and making them easy and actionable. Quantum physics, human design, manifestation, and neuroscience is just a short list of the things that can be really complicated and really deep and expansive subjects that I take and make into an ABC 1, 2, 3 formula, which is why I'm so passionate about being able to teach this information and share it with you, because there are very clear action steps you can do to be a manifesting machine. And really, the anxiety that we have is driving our manifestations to be more of some of our worst nightmares. Because if you don't know this already, surprise, you're already a manifesting machine. The question is how much of what you're manifesting is what you want, and how much of your manifesting is what you don't want, or maybe some of your worst nightmares or fears or limiting beliefs and things like that. So I love to create easy, actionable ways for you to step into living your dreams. And my mission is to create a world where women feel independent. And when they feel that nudge in their heart that they're like, yes, I want to do this, that they don't ever have to ask permission to their bank account, to a partner, to anyone. When it feels like an aligned yes for them to do something, they can just go for it. That's really my mission with You coaching. I want you to be the best version of you that you can possibly be and live in a world where you feel the freedom and independence that you have. All right. So now let's bring it back to anxiety and turning that into abundance. We are living in unprecedented times. And I'm sure this is old news for you, because all you need to do is look anywhere and see that these things that have never happened before seem to be happening now. I mean, in the government, in the world, recently, I've been very focusing on some of the changes in our ocean. Like, I don't know if you know this, but 2026 was the first year that the Panama Canal, I forget the name of the phenomenon, but a bunch of cold water from the bottom of the ocean rushes up and changes. And maybe it was actually the end of 2025. Time's a little bit of a mystery. It's going so fast. It was the first time in history of hundreds of years that hasn't done that. So the our oceans are so much hotter right now than they've ever been, which is causing sargassum and all these issues and fish and reef die-offs. So like that event, and I wish I could remember the name of it, has never ever ever happened before. And science has been watching for many 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 decades, up to a century, the water temperatures. So anxiety, because we're living in these uncertain times, it feels unsafe. Anxiety and uncertainty are everywhere you look, and you do not need to look very far to find that. And as a from in a political environment, the USA is in a situation we've never experienced. There's a lot of things that have never happened before, which makes us feel deeply unsafe. And a lot of these changes that are happening at a governmental level or international level are actually coming home to us in things like higher gas prices, higher groceries, things like that that are affecting our day to day, which makes it harder. So not only are we hearing about these news in things that we have no control over, we're also feeling the squeeze of the effects of those in our day-to-day living. It's putting us more on the hamster wheel, more in this place of anxiety, and it's a little bit more of a struggle to survive now than it ever has been before. And like I mentioned, news media is spoon feeding us fearful information day after day after day. In a very short story, I created this amazing art project. I'm a Colorado native. My husband's a Colorado native, and we created this incredible art project that to inspire other artists in Colorado and around the world that they can be creative and create art. Because I'm a scientist and my husband's an engineer, and yet we're both artists. And so we created this art piece for ourselves, but also for expression. We also created a nonprofit to support people in their artistic expression. And when we were looking for creative funding outlets for the nonprofit and this art piece that we created, we went to the news. I went to every news media outlet and said, it's not like I was asking for time on the actual TV news. I was like, could you just put a little corner in your website, a cute little story about how two Coloradans fell in love? My husband actually asked me to marry him on the day we debuted this art project. So it's literally like our love child. Um, and about how we are using this to inspire the world with art. And news media station after news media station, I went to 9 of them, and they all said, cute story, but if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. We only share negative information. And I even went to places that are like, they have their like positivity corner page on their website, and they're like, yeah, that's not good enough. We need like puppies and firefighters and very specific things. And every single news media outlet told me we're purposefully feeding you spoon feeding you fearful narratives. We only talk about negative stuff. And so that was 12 years ago, and I maybe 13. I declared from that day forward, I will never watch the news again because they each and every single one of them told me we're trying to make you feel scared. So I was like, okay, I'm going to unplug for the sake of my nervous system. Not that you have to choose that too, but I just wanted to share we are intentionally being fed poison for our nervous system. And we'll talk about today whether or not that serves you and how to maybe do that in a different way. And and our brains and nervous systems are already hardwired for survival and fear. And this really comes from caveman living, that you are focused on the fear. Because let's say you're back in caveman times, cavewoman times, and you're hanging out with your family around a fire. A snake comes in and bites Dave on the ankle, and then Dave dies. Well, your life and your family's life now depends on you remembering exactly what that snake looked like. So our brain is literally hardwired to take these tiny little negative facts and blow them up. And it's to help us survive. So our lives, generally speaking, in the good times of our lives, are about 80% positive and about 20% negative. And so this 20%, because of how our cave brain, our brains have evolved quite a bit, but not enough to let go of that survival instinct around, knowing exactly what that snake looked like. Thank God we're not most of us are not worried day to day about snakes and saber-toothed tigers, but our brain is still hardwired to take this 20% negative and amplify it by 3 times. So this 20% negative feels like 60% negative. So let's say, and this is when our lives are doing well, we're like 4/5 positive, 1/5 negative. What about when your life is a little bit more of a struggle? You have some challenges or some things going on that is, legitimately your life is about 50% positive and about 50% negative. Well, that 50% negative is going to feel like 150% negative. It's going to be overwhelming. Even though it's only about half of your life, it's going to be the only thing that you can possibly focus on because of how your brain is wired. So let's talk a little bit more. As a neuroscientist, I absolutely love to dig into how our brain is wired to really prove your limiting beliefs and your worst fears. Right. So you can only see 0.000003% of all information that exists in your environment at any given moment. That means 99.999997% of information is being blocked. So let me explain what that means and where these numbers come from. Every cell on my skin has proprioceptive receptors telling me where my clothes are touching my body, where my jewelry is, the temperature of the room, things like that. So every one of these skin cells is sending a signal to my body. All of the cones and rods in my eyes are sending, or sorry, signal to my brain from my body. All of the cones and rods in my eyes are sending a signal to my brain about all of the colors I can see. All of the olfactory receptors, every smell that I can smell. My tongue and all my gustatory sense is sending information in my brain about the coffee I took a sip of a few minutes ago and the taste I still have in my mouth. So, and then everything you hear, your ears are sending that information to your brain, and that's just your five senses. Then we have any of our extra sensory perceptions, things that are outside of your five senses that you're still sensing. You can, some of us are more or less aware of this, but you can feel your own energy. You can feel the energy of other people. Sometimes you can feel, well, you hopefully can always feel your own emotions. We didn't talk about that. Your emotions aren't a sense, but information about what emotions you're feeling are being sent to your brain. Sometimes information about what other emotions or what emotions other people are feeling are being sent to your brain. Your intuition, any other extrasensory perceptions you have are also feeding information to your brain every single second. And the reason why 99.999997% of information is blocked is your brain would be super overwhelmed. It's your brain is a supercomputer, but it is not that fast for the amount of information that is being sent to your brain. They did a study in the 1950s and they showed that it's 5 billion with a B bits of information every single second is going to your brain. And this is part of the reason why babies don't like shoes, because all of a sudden new information is flooding their brain. This is also why when you put on a new watch or piece of jewelry or something like that, in the beginning you can feel it, and then after a while you feel naked without it. And that's because you've actually changed your brain's filter, the reticular activating system of your brain. Your brain tunes out information that is consistent patterns. So if you wear your watch every day, the information from the skin that's touching that watch will not make it to your brain unless the watch is missing because your brain changed the filter to make that normal. And in for babies, they just simply don't have their reticular activating system formed. So when you put a sock on, a bunch of information is just being flooded to their brain every given minute. And so if you have 5 billion bits of information per second, can you guess how many your brain can actually process any given second? And this is in the 1950s, back when advertising was simply in magazines and occasional billboards, when TV was only a couple hours a day, and you had a couple commercials maybe, and then the TV was static for the rest of the day, or the rest of the time. And in the 1950s, your brain could only process 126 of 5 billion, which is how this 0.000003% is that 126 bits. And I put a picture of a Jeep because you've had experiences like this in the past. And with any, at any given moment, you can change what your brain is filtering to more fit what you want it to filter or what you're interested in. So when I was going to buy a Jeep, all of a sudden, when I had the idea, maybe I should buy a Jeep, Jeeps were everywhere, all over the road. And it's not like there's some conspiracy where all the Jeep owners said, now, let's everybody go buy a Jeep right now so Kitty can see a bunch of Jeeps on the road. It's that that information wasn't relevant to me, so I tuned it out. And then when it became relevant, I was able to see the Jeeps all over the road. And so, can you even imagine what it's like now in 2026 with all the information when we see an article on our phone, we carry a supercomputer in our pocket that we look at 1,000 times a day. And there is an ad on the top, an ad on the bottom, and an ad in two sides, and you can only see like this much of the actual article that you're reading if you're reading an article on your phone. And ads are playing every few seconds on social media, on TV or whatever. It seems like maybe every few minutes. But can you even imagine how much information you're getting now? I guarantee your brain's ability to process has gone up, but I guarantee it's still the same relationship that you're only seeing 0.000003% of the information in your field. So the million dollar question becomes, what is actually making it through your brain's filter? And it's whatever you're focused on. Whatever is true, whatever's true to you, which means whatever you believe, and you see things that prove your beliefs and your feelings are right. So if you have a belief that, for example, all men are jerks, that's all you're going to be able to see. I had a belief that finding housing was really hard in my area, and my husband had the opposite belief, and it just blew my mind that he would submit one application for one home or whatever, and he would always get it. And I was like, oh my God, my experience is I might have to submit 19 and I might never get any of them, because that is what my experience was in the past. So, anyways, because that's what I believed, that's what I experienced, because he believed it was easy, he experienced it easy. And so it's what you consciously or unconsciously want to be true. And that's because your brain, your subconscious mind really wants to prove you right. Again, that all men are jerks, or making money is hard, or whatever that belief is, even though it's not the belief you want to have, if there's some part of you that believes it, it's all that you can see because that is what's filtered through your brain. So the million dollar question really is, what do you want? And there's a big problem in manifestation when we're turning anxiety into abundance is we think we know what we want, but we actually don't. And this is fascinating to me. And this is after working for 8 years as a manifestation mentor, really supporting people in achieving their dreams. So many of us are crystal clear and we think we know what we want, but what we want is actually an illusion, meaning we want money because money will make us feel safe. Or what we want is a reaction, meaning it's the opposite of what we don't want. And that's like we want love because we're lonely. And either way, those are not real desires. And so if you want money because money will make you feel safe, you'll never be able to manifest money because you cannot manifest safety. You just can't. Safety is a state of being, and money inherently has no emotion associated with it except the emotions that you assign to it. And so you cannot manifest comfort, control, freedom, independence, safety, stability, or security. Because the sheer fact of you wanting to manifest those means you don't have them right now. You don't feel like you have them right now. And you can't plant a forest of abundance from a seed of scarcity. So you have to feel safe or stable to be able to manifest things that are safe and stable. And you have to be in a real desire, what you actually want, not a reaction and not an illusion. And that's why it's really important to dig into what do you want and why do you want it? Like, what does that actually mean to you? So we're going to dig even deeper in how to reprogram your brain. But in just the Cliffs Notes versions, what you do to pre-program your brain is figure out what you really want. And it needs to be your heart's deepest desire. Again, not a reaction, not an illusion, an actual desire. Something you want to see, do, be, have, experience in your life because you want to experience it. No other reason. And then program your brain to find evidence that it exists already. So if what you want is more freedom, I recently did this with someone who's a client. She has a 9 to 5 job and really wants to break out and leave her job to go and do coaching. And she said, I just don't have any time freedom. I want coaching because that'll give me time freedom. And I was like, well, you can want coaching, but just so you know, Coaching is never going to give you freedom because freedom is a feeling. You have to feel free and then be able, when you feel free, you can manifest more freedom. But if you don't feel free, coaching is not going to give you a sense of freedom. So I encouraged her to find time in her life right now where she already has freedom of time. Like, how much freedom of time does she have? So I was like, great, how many hours a day do you work? And she was like, well, I work eight and a half, like my work day is 8.5 hours, but I'm actually gone an hour and a half every day for lunch in the gym. And that's like part of an agreement I have with my work. So my gears are already thinking, I was like, oh, so you already have time freedom in your work day. Got it. And then I was like, great. And then how many hours a day are you sleeping? 8. So I was like, great. What are you doing with the other 7.5 hours a day? She's like, well, I'm a mom and I'm this and I'm that. And I was like, yes. And like, okay, how many hours a day for mom duties? We kind of got linear. And we were able to come up with, she actually has about 4 hours every day that she gets to choose what she wants to do. So we gathered the evidence that she already had time freedom. It already existed in her life. And because she was focusing on where she had freedom, she started to notice that she was like, wow, it is crazy that my job allows me to have an hour and a half, even though I'm only given half an hour. I have an hour and a half lunch every single day to go to the gym and eat and all of this. And my job is totally okay with it. That's freedom. And they also let her log on late on Thursdays so she can go to a coffee house and have some personal time. So, like all of these different things, she was just able to see her world and all of the freedom she already had because she started focusing on these tiny little pockets and moments where she had freedom. And so, notice the synchronicities in your life that are going in the direction you want to go as proof that you have the freedom you want. And then the step number 3 is start taking action in the direction you want. But we're gonna keep talking about what that action might be as we go through this presentation. And I already mentioned this, but I want to dig even deeper into this. Whatever you believe is true is the only thing you can see, literally. Literally, that is the only thing your brain will allow through your filter. So if you want to change what you want to be true in your world, you get to change and shift your belief systems. I love to do that using neuroscience with my clients and the people I work with to get there faster and easier. But you can just shift your beliefs. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. We'll talk about some supportive techniques coming up in a moment. So, what if you could create a new mantra? Everything is always working out for me. And these are amazing. Mantras and affirmations are incredible and they work on a conscious level, meaning your thinking mind is your conscious level, your subconscious mind is your beliefs, your emotions, your autonomic nervous system, and a bunch of other stuff. Basically your personality, and 95% of your mind is actually subconscious. So when we have these affirmations, or mantras that we want to be true, they're amazing and they help us program our brain. But the catch 22 is your nervous system is operating in the subconscious, and your emotions and beliefs are operating in the subconscious. So that means you're trying to go left with your conscious mind, but your subconscious mind, which is that's 5%, and your subconscious mind is 95% and it's trying to go the other direction. So you have these conflicting systems, and your subconscious mind, because it's rooted in safety, will almost always, like 99% of the time, rewrite your conscious mind. So, whatever you believe, whatever your nervous system is doing, and whatever your emotions are doing, are driving your manifestations more than anything else, more than what you want, more than what you say, more than the conscious habits you do. And what's really interesting that most people don't know is your energy system and your nervous system are the foundation of your manifestation. So you can be doing every single thing right, and like all of the manifestation techniques and all of this, you can be doing everything right. But if your nervous system is fried or your energetic system is not in a receptive state, you're not going to be able to manifest what you want consistently, even if you're taking all of the right actions. Because it's basically saying if you don't lay the foundation of the house to be solid and stable, you can build the most beautiful house on top of it and decorate it and design it and live in it. But if a strong wind blows, an earthquake, a something, your house, you're not going to be able to like have this beautiful safe home that's stable because it's not built on a foundation. And so if you really want to change your brain's filter, What you need to create is a new way of orienting to the world. And you need to shift these deeply rooted belief systems that are in alignment. Right now, your belief systems are in alignment with whatever your reality is, and your belief systems are in alignment with the past. And we want to shift your belief systems to be aligned with possibility, desire of what you want moving forward, and the future. So let's talk about this is the meat and potatoes of this talk of how do you calm your nervous system? Because a calm nervous system is the most important aspect to manifesting everything you want in your life. And this is the first question I encourage people to ask when they're looking at calming their nervous system. What can you add or what can you remove that really calms your nervous system? Let's talk about some of those things. So, things that you can add to calm your nervous system is anything that gets you out of your head and into your body. So, I like to do things like when I'm noticing I'm feeling a little anxious or I'm in my head bubble and I'm not in my body. I just do things like rub my fingers together. I scrunch my toes in my shoes or on the floor. I ground outside. I literally let my bare feet touch the grass or the dirt or even cement. You can ground a little bit through cement if you're not in a place where you can easily access dirt or grass. So just getting outside and letting the earth is negatively charged and our body's protein is naturally negatively charged. But when we're overthinking, we are actually each time we're like each thought we create, not only is it breaking down neurotransmitters in our brain, it's actually creating this buildup of positive ions in our brain. And when we go connect to the earth, because the earth is so big and so negative, it just pulls all of these positive ions out of our brain and body and gives them to the earth. And so we can become the electrical charge, the true electrical charge we're meant to be. You can touch something soft, like a blanket. You can pet a person. You can pet an animal. And that all of that releases oxytocin. So anytime I'm stressed, I do have a pet. I love a dog that I love to pet. And so she is my absolute nervous system calming tool. She's my favorite. And if she's not around, I will go to on my bed. I have this really soft, fluffy blanket and I will just like rub my hands on it, maybe rub it on my face a little bit, just get myself back in my body and out of my thinking mind. Then the butterfly hug and tap. So the butterfly hug and tap is actually what's pictured is you cross your arms over your heart. So you're like your wrists or somewhere in your arms is over your heart. And you just very gently tap one side and the other. And you can tap your arms, you can tap your shoulders, you could tap your chest. It doesn't really matter as long as you've crossed the median point in your body. So you've crossed and you're just slowly tapping. Um, Kindergartens that have very high social emotional intelligence programs teach this to children because it's one of the best things. It's so accessible at any given moment. And so if they're having tantrums, if they're stressed, if they're spinning out into anxiety or whatever their emotional disruption is, they will just they teach children that you can just lightly tap yourself. And I don't know if you're playing along with me, but it's really amazing. You can just feel yourself drop into your body and you want to tap really slow. Doing this isn't helping anything. It's just slow, soft taps. And then the havening technique is also a really powerful tool that you can use. So let's talk about that. There is no wrong way to do the havening. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. In fact, when I was looking up images to give you some examples, I found about 25 different ways to do the havening. All the havening is it's a fancy term for self-petting, self-soothing. So the one that I think is the most effective is the one in the middle. Again, you cross your arms in the meridian. I don't have time to get into why this is so important, but anytime your brain actually activates and fires differently when you cross your hands. And also, butterfly hug and tap and the havening, you're giving yourself an actual hug. So that's really, it's calming, it's grounding, it makes you feel safe. And you can either do circular motions. I usually just pet top to bottom, lift my hands up, pet top to bottom. You could pet bottom to top. It doesn't really matter, but you're just literally kind of petting yourself. You can do it on your face. In fact, the traditional way I was taught by someone who's certified in the havening is they said loose little light fingertips, and you just slowly, very slowly, focus on the feeling from your face and from your fingertips of what it's like to just slowly drag your fingertips across your face. Just being with the physical sensation from the, like, what do my fingers feel like as I touch my face? What does my face feel like as I touch it with my fingertips? And that's it. That's as simple as havening. And the one thing that I find the most socially acceptable to do in any given situation is to rub my hands together. So if I ever feel, if I'm stressed, if I'm a professional speaker, so it doesn't stress me out to speak anymore. I'm honestly in my joy and my pleasure right now. But back the very first time I ever spoke, and I was so scared. I had a video because I had somebody videotape me because I was so committed to like kind of figuring out how to be a better speaker. And so, it was so interesting. I didn't have slides at the time. And I was like, what do you do with your hands? And I did talk with my hands a little bit, but I kept bringing my hands back down and just rubbing them together. So this whole presentation, I spent a decent part of the time, probably a third of my presentation, rubbing my hands together because I was unconsciously soothing myself. I was unconsciously keeping myself in my body to keep myself from being nervous. And just notice the tone of my voice has changed. My speed of talking has changed. I've really dropped into my body. So you can do this. You can do this in public at any given time. And Dr. Shirzad Chamine, I think that's how you pronounce his name, he wrote the book Positive Intelligence. He talks about just rubbing two fingertips together. And what does it feel like from my index finger to feel my thumb? And what does my thumb feel like to feel my index finger? And can you move your fingers so slowly that you can actually feel the ridges of your fingertip? Like, sorry, your fingerprint. And putting this sort of focus gets me out of my head and into my body. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this, and they are quick and easy. You can drop in as little as a few seconds from being in anxiety and spinning in your head to dropping into your body. Okay. So those are some of the things you can add to calm your nervous system. Now let's talk about some of the things you might consider to remove to calm your nervous system. So again, if you choose to participate in the news and you feel that that's empowering, that's totally fine. I would really encourage you from not getting on into the news in the first 90 minutes of the day and the last 90 minutes of the day because your brain is highly suggestible before and after sleep. And so anything that you're consuming within 90 minutes of waking up or 90 minutes before going to bed is actually being programmed into your mind. So if you're watching news during these times, it's going to be negatively impacting your nervous system more than if you watched the news, the same news articles, or read the same news articles during your lunch break. It's actually going to affect you more significantly on a nervous system physiological level later, right at the beginning and end of your day. And again, consider at least right now, well, I made this choice a long time ago, and then I used to stay a little bit plugged into the news. I would follow the scientific news and other things. And now I'm very clear that in this moment, for a short period of time, zero news is what I need to keep my nervous system grounded and calm for me to show up the best I can for my clients. So, things like scary movies, podcasts, or stories actually hijack your nervous system. And I had a friend who has a lot of anxiety, and I've known her for many, many, many years. And at one point, she was just like, oh, my favorite podcasts are all about serial killers and murder mysteries. And I was like, wait, you have anxiety and you listen to serial killer and murder mystery podcasts? And she was like, well, yeah, I've had anxiety my whole life, but I just really love these like murder mystery serial killer podcasts. And I was like, well, would you like a tip for reducing your anxiety? And she was like, that'd be great. Like, my anxiety is crippling every day. And I was like, why don't you skip the scary movies, the murder mystery podcasts, and all of these like scary stories just for 30 days and see how your anxiety changes? And she was like, well, no, 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 you don't understand. I was anxious before, and then I like these. It doesn't change. I was anxious before, I'm anxious after. It's no difference. And I was like, well, if you're committed to shifting your anxiety, consider cutting those things out just for 30 days and seeing how you feel. And because I am who I am, I actually gave her a score so she could have numerical scores on her anxiety because I happen to have those resources available to me. In worksheets I created that assess, and at the beginning and end, and her anxiety went down dramatically. And she was like, "But I don't understand. I was anxious before the pod or like the serial killer podcast. Like, why is removing that thing? Why did it help my anxiety so much?" And I will say your preferences and what you like and enjoy will put you into energies and emotions that are familiar to you. So, because she was very familiar with anxiety, she actually unconsciously sought out things that gave her anxiety because anxiety was an emotion she was very practiced in. And so she was seeking out things that made her, that reinforced her belief and emotion that the world's a scary place. And then when she cut out the serial killer podcast, her anxiety was cut down by like 50% because she wasn't reinforcing the idea that the world is out to get me and it's a very scary place. So, whatever media you consume is subliminal messaging. And so every TV show, podcast, and movie has a theme. There is a message that they're wanting to convey to you. And the question is that message in alignment with what you want your brain to be programmed with? So let me give you a couple more examples of how that shows up in more subtle ways than serial killer podcasts. Is shows that race against the clock. So I am very practiced. I am, I have the badge of busyness. That's something I'm working on releasing all the time that I really want to I enjoy being busy and kind of running from thing to thing because that is what I've practiced in my life. So oftentimes when I create space in my life and blank space, what do I do is kind of actually uncomfortable for me. So I find ways to fill that space. And I used to love shows that raced against the clock. Chopped, Nailed It, all these cooking shows where they give you impossible tasks to do in 30 minutes or an hour or 3 hours or whatever. And they kept saying the same thing again and again. I could have done better if I had more time. And I started realizing it wasn't it. Well, thankfully, my husband is the one who picked this out. I was like, I'm always busy no matter what I do. And I always feel like I'm racing against the clock. And I just know in my heart, if I had more time, I could do better on the things I was doing. And my husband is like, that's the exact same thing they say on all these cooking shows that we watch every single day. And I was like, huh, interesting. So I cut out the cooking shows and my relationship with time scarcity changed. I didn't feel like I was rushing against a clock all the time. And so, and sometimes it's more subtle. Bob's Burgers is my favorite example. I love adult cartoons, and I love it because it's about a family that just really loves each other and sticks together. But what's the message of every single episode of Bob's Burgers? Entrepreneurship is hard. Life kicks you down. Money is scarce. And just every day is a fresh new hell of something coming at you. But we get together with it through it as a family. And I started realizing I was like, I don't want any. I was like, I like the family part, but I don't like anything else of that. So I don't watch Bob's Burgers anymore because it's not programming my mind with the themes and the ideas I want to be programmed with. And so that's enough about media. Just be very thoughtful. If the only action step you take away from this is to evaluate the media that you're consuming, that would be an incredible action step towards turning your anxiety into abundance. Which again, I still have some more tools coming. So anything that makes you feel anxious, nervous, or on edge needs to go because that is not supporting your nervous system for manifestation. And that doesn't mean it has to go forever. But until you can calm your nervous system, it needs to go at least for now. So, more things that you can remove to calm your nervous system is, and I kind of already said this, you're with the serial murder mystery podcast, you're conditioned to stay safe, and safe is stuck. Safe is exactly where you are now and have been in the past. You will choose opportunities, people, and things. You will choose to stay there. And so stay safe equals stuck equals self-sabotaging you on making progress, on implementing a new morning routine or working towards your vision or manifesting that thing you want, you will unconsciously self sabotage simply because your nervous system resists change. Your brain, your ego, and your nervous system all don't want you to change. And so you need to learn how to work with those and learn how to understand the signals. So your preferences are aligned with who you have been in the past and not where you're going or what you want. And so that's why, like I said, my friend was so interested in those serial killer podcasts because that was very aligned with what she used to feel. And so we make the same choices again and again, mostly unconsciously. Did you know you make 60,000 choices every single day? And the vast majority, I would say at least 58,000 of those choices are actually unconscious. You choose what you eat and how much you eat, and we make choices every single second almost. And so the question is, are you paying attention to those choices? Where are you doing the things because that's what you've always done versus moving towards what you want to create? And this really explains how and why we self-sabotage. Our brain and our nervous system want and our ego want us to stay the same. And so when we want to calm our nervous system, oftentimes we go to habits that give us the quickest payoff and the quickest hit, like alcohol, sugar, binge watching, doom scrolling, all of these things. These are things that your nervous system knows that keep you safe and stuck and gives you an immediate dopamine hit. But the problem is, as soon as you get that, as soon as you stop the activity, the dopamine is gone. So you have to keep scrolling, you have to keep binge watching, you have to keep drinking, you have to keep eating the sugar or the food. And because you're getting dopamine from the act of it, and you can't stop, otherwise the dopamine stops because it's not real or supportive. And it gives you this false sense of comfort, but only for this moment. And this actually always makes the problem worse because we get stuck in these dopamine loops that make us feel comfortable, but they're keeping us stuck. They're wasting our time. They're, hijacking our nervous system by doom scrolling. Like they're making our inner critic louder. They make us feel physically bad with alcohol or sugar. Or maybe we beat ourselves up for the time we've wasted. We just get in this cycle. And so oftentimes it takes an outside perspective for us to be able to actually see our blind spots, for us to see how and where our preferences and our habits are keeping us in this self-sabotaging loop. Where are we keeping ourselves stuck? Where are we resisting change? It often takes an outside perspective because we're not able to see our own blind spots. So we talked about the nervous system. Now let's talk about the emotional component of manifestation. Because again, your emotions and your nervous system are the two biggest drivers in manifestation. And so if you want to manifest more of what you want, you get to improve your emotional vibration. And let's talk about what that means. Those are keywords you hear all the time. I'm going to tell you the science behind them. So we manifest from emotional energy. And whatever you manifest is a response to whatever emotion you're in the moment. And your emotions are really created from your thoughts and beliefs. And it becomes this like snowball or this cycle. Your thoughts and beliefs create an emotion, but then the emotion reinforces the thoughts and beliefs, will put you in the emotion, and you're in this like snowball or this like silo, just repeating the cycle again and again. So our fear, our grief, our anger, our uncertainty, our anxiety literally drain our energy, like our vitality, our life force, and they bring us down in emotional energy as well. So to manifest what we want, we need to be in a higher emotional energy, and I'll show you what that means in just a moment, because this is the map of consciousness. Dr. David Hawkins, who wrote the book Power versus Force, and just notice that each emotion on the left-hand side is the hertz. This is what this is the frequency of the emotion. This is literally, the wavelength of it. And notice that each emotion has a specific frequency associated with it. And notice there's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion. All emotions have a place in our life because our emotions are our internal guidance system. And so notice that emotions you probably want to be feeling less: guilt, shame, apathy, grief, fear. And by the way, this desire, it's hard to read, but it's greed is really what this desire means. It's greed, insatiability, jealousy, and anger. These emotions you probably want to be feeling less have much lower numbers than like love, joy, and peace. So when we're in this place of anxiety and scarcity, we're actually vibrating, our emotional vibration is about 100 hertz. And if we want to be manifesting, we need to pull our emotion. We start manifesting what we want at 500 hertz. And it's hard to see, but at this 500 hertz, there's a really tiny little box right here that says dissolves negativity. So if we want to start manifesting our dreams, we need to pull up our vibrational energy to this place where we're in love and joy and peace. And one of the ways we do this is through gratitude. You might notice that the most important emotion of all isn't on this chart. Enlightenment is actually a grouping of 26 or 28 different emotions, including authenticity and a bunch of other stuff, and gratitude. So anytime you're wanting to pull yourself up this chart from anxiety into peace, joy, and love, feeling gratitude is the answer. And yes, you can write in a gratitude journal, but it's not a mental exercise. It's about feeling into your emotions. Feeling the emotion of gratitude is what pulls your emotions up this chart. So, how do you raise your emotional energy? And it can be a little challenging. Emotions are like a volcano, this paper mache volcano. We've all seen, we've either done it as children or we've done it ourselves. We've seen people do it or maybe seen references on TV where there's a paper mache volcano and you add baking soda and you just add, you add baking soda, baking soda, baking soda. And then you add the catalyst. One little thing is vinegar and you pour it in and psh, the volcano explodes everywhere. The same thing happens to your emotions when you are not releasing them regularly. So our emotions build up and creates this pressure, which it causes us to explode either on ourselves, on other people. We're triggered is the common word people use. And then we're in this emotional place we don't want to be. So it's important for us to actually drain out the negative emotions. And I don't know about you, but when I was born, nobody gave me the instruction manual on how to be a good human. And one of the most important things I've learned in my life is that draining your negative emotions is essential to being a happy, healthy human. And it's not just draining your negative emotions, it's also replacing them with positive emotions. So there's processes you can do. I don't have time to get into it today, but if you want some support in that, let me know. This is something I do with my clients a lot. We drain the negative emotions and then we feel the positive emotions. And the more you practice feeling the positive emotions that you want to feel, the more that they come up unconsciously throughout your life. And so these are some of the things that you can do for emotional routine maintenance. Again, I'm going to go really briefly and quickly through these things, but if you want extra support on these, let me know. So emotional maintenance on a daily or weekly basis is essential to being a manifesting machine for your dreams. And so we need to just emotional routine maintenance simply is giving ourselves the time and space that we need to process our emotions. And some of the easiest ways to process is a date with doubt. That's where you take loose leaf paper and you write down all of your doubts, all of your fears, all of your anxieties, anything you want out of your head, any beliefs. It's hard to make money. I'm so lonely. I'm sad. What if nobody ever loves me? It doesn't matter. Just any negative thoughts, emotions, beliefs all go on this paper. And then you burn this paper. And then so it transforms it. It's a double transformation. It transforms it from being in your brain, your body, and your energy field onto the paper. And then from the paper, when you burn it, it's the energy is released back into the universe, back to source, and you created space for new things to come to you. And when you do this practice, I really recommend people in the beginning do it for 3 to 5 minutes every day, for like 1 to 2 weeks, and then you do it once a week. And the reason why it's important to keep up once a week is because when you're giving, I already said this earlier, your emotions are your guidance system. When you're giving them time and space to be felt and expressed, then and you do it every week. And I used to do this on Friday mornings, when self-doubt came up on a Tuesday afternoon, I would say, I'll see you Friday morning. And my emotions would actually say, okay. And they would go away until then. It sounds crazy, but it works really well. Some other things you can do is if you have a lot of anger, you can go to a smash room. You can journal out your emotions. You can go be in nature. Nature naturally supports us in draining negative emotions. You can do EFT tapping, which is emotional freedom technique. I'm going a little faster because we're running out of time. But you can look this up. There's a bunch of follow along videos. The basic premise is this is where ancient Chinese medicine meets modern day psychology. You tap on organ meridians because each organ is in Chinese medicine is associated with a specific emotion. So what you do is you identify the issue. I'm having anxiety right now. That's the issue. And then rate your anxiety on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst. And then you tap on these different areas. You tap on every single area saying, even though I have this anxiety, I love and accept myself anyways. Even though I'm feeling anxiety and I don't want to right now, I love and accept myself anyways. And you tap through all the emotions. And you can do this for 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute, whatever. And then you tap on the meridians and then you rate your intensity. And you keep going until the intensity goes from the 7 that you were at down to where you want to be, maybe a 1 or a 2. And I want to share as you're shifting these emotions, holding brand new emotions can be really hard. Our brains literally have neurological pathways that are like, I like to think about, I've practiced feeling anxiety a lot in my life. That's why I'm passionate about teaching people how to get out of it. And that means I have an anxiety superhighway in my brain of neurons. So with practice, it takes a lot for me to be triggered for anxiety. But as soon as I hit that threshold, I am on the bullet train to anxiety town. So it's okay. And it might be a little challenging in the beginning for you to be able to shift your emotions. So just give yourself some grace and space. You have default emotions that you're normally used to feeling, and we're going to rewire those emotions. Your Dr. Joe Dispenza's work actually shows us that your body is actually addicted to feeling certain emotions. And so just give yourself some grace and space as you work through this. And it's really not about toxic positivity. That's like saying, I'm doing great. Everything is wonderful when you feel like you're dying on the inside. That's not what we're talking about. I want you to feel your emotions, but this is about releasing your emotions and replacing them with the emotions you want to feel. It's really important that you feel your emotions. You can't stuff them. So sitting with them, processing them to find them the lessons, and oftentimes the lessons might not be clear to us. So that's why having somebody like a coach or a therapist or somebody that can support you in this is really powerful, and you getting the lessons and processing your emotions faster and easier. And again, we want to change your deeply rooted belief systems and hold faith that everything is always happening for you. No matter how bad the thing is in your life, it's always to your benefit in the long run. And being able to see this can be really challenging, like how you can't see the forest through the trees. That's why I love to support my clients in doing this. And finding gratitude. This is emotional mastery. Finding gratitude for every single thing in your life, including all of the negative things that happen. That is emotional mastery. So, in summary, how you turn anxiety into abundance is you want to upgrade your nervous system to be in alignment with manifesting what you want by either adding or removing the things that are hijacking your nervous system. And you also need to get clear in what you want. What is it that you're manifesting? Because if you're manifesting an illusion or a reaction, you're not going to be able to manifest it. You want to find evidence that helps you reprogram your brain that what you want is freedom, that you already have freedom in your everyday life. You want to break through your unconscious resistance patterns that keep you stuck in self-sabotage. Develop the ability to transform uncomfortable emotions and take aligned action steps, and build a new identity of who you're becoming that makes your manifestations inevitable. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here and taking the time today. If you would love support in turning your anxiety into abundance, I would love to support you. I have extremely limited spots available right now in my calendar, but I would love to offer you a free 30-minute manifesting machine coaching session. And this is really focused on, what do you need to shift in your nervous system? How are you going to build an identity? What do you need to release to manifest more? So with that, there's limited spots available. You need to complete your session by September 7th. I only have 3 different days available, and there's a couple different spots on each day. So here's a link. You can scan a QR code. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And with that, I would love to open up to any questions anybody has, and I'll stop the recording. Okay, hold on. Do-do-do. Stop recording.